What happens to a country that causes it to outlaw the genius of a great composer? What happens to a people that permit themselves to be so denied? It doesn't happen overnight, this condition. It develops slowly and so suddenly that people don't realize what's being done. And suddenly, it's all there. And then it's too late to fight back. At least, that's what weak people say. Strong people fight in spite of everything. They risk themselves for what they believe in. I admire them. I envy them. Whatever happens to them.
Hello, everybody! I'm Zenith Warrior Princess, the cutest of ghost buns, and welcome back to the Disney debate where Kat Macberrie, Doug Macberrie, and myself discuss Disney films, and we are in for another treat because once again in the 60s, we're finally finding hidden gems, and this is yet another hidden gem. So, before I get into all that, how's it going, Miss Cat?
My Little Pony. Oh, wait, these aren't ponies. My Little Lepizons. Oh, wait, they're not little. Damn it, it doesn't work. I'm doing pretty good. I didn't expect to enjoy anything about horses. Don't get me wrong, I like horses. I loved My Little Pony growing up. I was just never one of those girls that was into horses, but I will say, this is a very interesting story that strangely had me captivated. So I'm rather excited to be talking about it today.
And Mr. Doog.
Back in the 90s, I was in a very famous TV show. I'm Bojack the Lepizender Stallion. What is this, a crossover episode? I'm doing okay. Yeah, looking forward to talking about this one.
Yeah, me too. So, for those who are unaware, we generally go from the 30s onward through the timeline. We discuss films in chronological order, aside from, sequels, and we do our annual, top 10 lists and our Christmas and Halloween episodes. But aside from that, we generally strive, aside from, Elseworlds Month and, some of the marathons that we do just to kind of break away, we strive to do things in chronological order. And the 60s has been started off as very weak sauce. I'm not saying it's bad, but there's been a lot of films that we just classified as duds, stinkers, nothing important, nothing that you would write home about. But as we started getting through, the late, 63, stuff like that, 62, we started to find hidden gems. And, we did In Search of the Castaways last time. That was definitely a hidden gem. Almost Angels was a hidden gem. And so when we got to this one, we're like, okay, I'm not sure what we're in for. But, excluding The Legend of Lobo, which was the episode in between Almost Angels and In Search of the Castaways, we've had hidden gems, and this is yet another hidden gem. It is also a horse film. Now, Eliza, when watching this film, who is my roommate, wanted to weigh in on this film because she normally doesn't like horse-related films at all. And, I was just like, okay, let's see how we feel about it. And she's like, damn it, you made me like a horse film. That should tell you a little bit of something about this film, because, I'm not a huge horse person, she's not a huge horse person, but this is actually an interesting film to get into, and there's a lot more to it than you would really expect. Now, I'm going to say this with a caveat. This is a hidden gem, but it has 3 segments that really bog the film down, I still recommend it. Unfortunately, this is one that is not easy to find because it's not on streaming services. We found it on YouTube, though. So if you're looking, you can find this on YouTube. We're talking about Miracle of the White Stallions. Kat, do you want to give some initial thoughts? Talk about, the general idea of this film?
Yeah, so I didn't really know what to expect with this film. I try not to look ahead, just so I can, experience it in real time. And, yeah, once I realized this was a war film, I'm like, oh, we're going there. So that's why this isn't on any streaming service. Okay. So, yeah, I honestly, I kind of like war films because granted, a lot of them tell the same stuff we learned in history class, but there are other stories in between that don't get told till decades later that are actually quite fascinating. And this to me is one of them. I'm going to start off by stating this for everybody listening. Due to YouTube's algorithm flagging certain words, we're not going to say said words when describing the Axis forces or the German people or, the N-word party or the H-word man. So I'm just going to make up my own words and titles when talking about them, just for reference going forward. So yeah, anyway, this movie is about when the Nincompoop Party invaded Austria. And they almost destroyed one of the oldest living institutes in Europe, which was the Spanish Riding School, which features the Lepizan Stallions. Now, if you never heard of the Lepizan Stallions, they are these purebred horses that are bred for show. And it takes several years to train them properly. And basically, they are trained to do basically synchronized prancing and dancing. I know it doesn't sound like much, but when you watch them in action, it's really impressive to see these horses, the way they're able to, prance in a straight line and zigzag back and forth between each other, not to mention points where they actually rear up on their hind legs and then they do a nice kick in the air. It's really impressive. Well, this story is about how, during World War II, we almost lost that. And it was thanks to the bravery of one of the head of the school and all the people that helped him along the way that they were able to save this institution. It's really harrowing. I won't lie, the first, I want to say, third of this movie, I was on edge the whole time. Not just because I was worried about, the characters and surviving, but I was genuinely worried we were going to see some horses, bite it. But thankfully that doesn't happen. I'm going to tell you right now, there is no animal harm or death in this film. Thank God.
Yeah. Speaking of, because some people in the comments for Legend of Lobo said, oh yeah, there's a couple films that we actually forgot to mention that might have animal harm in them coming up, but we'll get to that. We will. Luckily, this film is not, no animals were harmed in the making of this film, and this is actually a really interesting story. I have to confess, I went into this one completely blind because this is one of those things where I look it up and I think, oh, it's just about horses, Miracle of the White Stallions. There's only two things I think of when I hear Miracle of the White Stallions. The first is White Stallions, yeah, it's you have expectations there, it's gonna be like that, or it's gonna be like a documentary about horses, and then it starts off with a bunch of stuff with horses, and you get into the Nincompoop Party, and I'm just oh. And I remember texting Kat, and it's oh, so this is an anti-nincompoop film. And she's like, what, do you think it was a pro-nincompoop film? I know it's not that. I thought this was about the horses.
Yeah, I was surprised because by Disney standards, you think this would be about the animals themselves, either either done documentary style, or it's focuses on the horses like a cartoon character, or they do a typical like a boy and his dog type story, but it's a boy and his horse. No, none of that happens in this. Like the horses are more like MacGuffins than anything else, in that, you know, they're the thing to save. They're the big thing driving the plot, but the focus isn't really on them. It's more about the people that are trying to get them safely out of Vienna. And I think that was a very smart move, them playing it straight like that, and just, you know, making it about the story of rescuing them, not trying to insert some, you know, Disneyfied, like, soppy, happy, you know, happy ending type story. Like, there are actual, like, you know, dark stuff in this. There's actual risks taken. You worry that any of the characters are gonna get killed at any moment. So, like, it actually has some tension to it.
Yeah, like this is a full-on World War II story, full-on, you know, dealing with stuff at the time, and you worry because, you know, these people aren't loyal to this party, but they're just like, well, if we defy them, something bad is going to happen. And so there's a lot of political tension and intrigue and just bravery from everyone around. I was not expecting a war story, and what we got was actually deeper and more important than I think the name Miracle of the White Stallions deserves, because there's some extremely amazing quotes, like the one that started this podcast. It gets really deep. Before we go further into that, Doug, your initial thoughts about this film?
So yeah, like you guys, I basically went in blind, just thinking, you know, by the title, I was like, oh, you know, it's gonna be some horse movie. And then we get into the opening of it, and I hear Lippaziners. And for me, that takes me back to the 90s, when I saw a show called The Angry Beavers, in which there's an episode where Norbert desires, his lifelong dream is to become a Lipizzaner stallion. Then he goes to freaking Vienna to train to be a Lipizzaner stallion, show horse. And it is one of the funniest things. But yeah, so it did surprise me. It's like, oh, I have some very, you know, small knowledge of this topic. And yeah, it's crossed that with you know, Disney back in the war era, you know, that propaganda. I mean, to be fair, this was actually not so much propaganda, but if you were to use this as propaganda to, you know, side against the Nincompoop Party in the war, this would have been pretty damn effective.
Yeah. I actually did not know about that episode, but Kat's like, oh yeah, we have that on DVD, you should check it out. So I sat down, I watched it, and I'm like, my god, they actually nailed it with that episode, that because a lot of that is in this movie. And the Colonel, while it may not be like that, like very much perfect satire. No notes, 10 out of 10. The only thing they didn't have was Patton. But then again, you have Daggett, who's doing his best Rocky Coach impersonation.
Move it, horsey boy, move it.
Move it, horsey boy!
Move it, horsey boy!
And not only that, they even incorporate in the Vienna choir, the Vienna Boys Choir. So it's like all of the Vienna things at once.
So it's like, for us who have been going through the Vienna period of Disney and seeing this, I'm like, dang, I want to watch more Angry Beavers. That was a perfect parody. So yeah, that's amazing right there. No notes.
I understood that reference.
So All right, enough with the happy-go-lucky attitude. I want to get into the nitty-gritty right now before anything, because there's stuff that we have to discuss. The first third of this film really deals with the Nincompoop Party, World War II, and really delves into a lot of the moral dilemmas, because there's some gray areas here where they live in Vienna. They are contracted to be part of the army. Apparently, the Spanish riding school was, like, taken over to be part of, like, a military portion of the Nincompoop Party. And so they didn't really have any choice. And throughout the entire film, Colonel Podaski is doing his best to, like, he wants to protect himself, he wants to protect his wife, but he doesn't like what's happening. Like, everyone in his school who's, like, being taught is being drafted into this war that they don't want to fight. And they see all these boys who would have to go into war, and he doesn't think that they're gonna come back. He tries to save them, but, you know, they get denied. He tries to evacuate his horses. They get denied, even though they're being bombed in the Spanish riding school. So, like, there's all this intrigue of, like, wow, like, there's real big tension of stuff going on. And it builds up, and it builds up, and it builds up. Doug, what did you think of, like, that initial tension? Like, the song that they sing at the school, and, like, seeing them leave off to the war, and I thought that was really heartbreaking.
Oh, yeah, and I literally just watched the movie for the second time today, just before recording, and yeah, those songs that they sing in the is in the bar or the mess hall, it's just it really hits you right there. Just, you know, these guys are gonna go off to war for no good reason. It also kind of gives me vibes of The Sound of Music, and how, you know, you see Austria slowly being consumed by the Nincompoop Party, you know, and how it changes, and how people are, you know, trying to live their lives, but at the same time they know, you know, this isn't working. Something's got to give. So, you know, it definitely has all of that in it. And then the fact that they actually show, you know, the horrors of war. They show the air raids happening. And like Kat said earlier, it's like you definitely feel like, oh, at any minute, any of these characters that we're watching could just go away. These horses could be in mortal peril.
I actually got super nervous when they started setting off bombs, like, near the actual horses. I'm like, okay, we're straying into possible animal endangered territory, but thankfully that's only just for one scene, and they are far enough away. But you can, like, feel the horses' fear when they set those things off, so that still made me, like, really uncomfortable.
Yeah, and it's like but it still gets that emotional gut reaction. And it's just like they sit down, they have a meal, they sing a song, and like Sherman Brothers did it again, because that song is probably one of the highlights of the film. But then they go off to war, and it's like, okay, Pulaski has to be like, okay, I want to save my horses. What do? They won't give me an evacuation order, because according to that party, they're like, well, we want to appear strong in this war. We want to appear strong. And the school is a symbol of strength. How come you don't have all this artwork displayed in the school that was just bombed? How come you don't have this stuff here for a symbol of strength? And I'm just like over here like, my God, you are idiots.
It should be noted that this takes place in the final year of the war. So, like, they are literal months from, you know, full surrender. That's how dire a situation it is, and how totally nonsensical it is that they pretend that everything is okay.
yes, if we pretend everything is fine, it'll be all fine. So essentially, because Pulaski can't get any orders to evacuate, they find a loophole where they said, okay, well, we never rescinded the order to take treasures out of the country because, they wanted to get the artwork and whatnot out there. And so they stage a hidden ride where they go through all these checkpoints and take the horses with them to move the artwork. But the real thing is to get the Lipizan Stallions out of there. Now, unfortunately, at the same time, the 70 stallions that they have are the non-breeding ones, the ones that actually do the riding. But they have 300 Lipizan or horses meant to be a breeding farm who have been captured in Czechoslovakia. So it becomes, all right, well, let's get these horses out of here to save them. And then now we have to find a way to save the mares. And it's just like, it becomes a lot of intrigue because once they start evacuating them out, you see a lot of like the hidden underbelly of society in Vienna at that time of like, people doing their best to survive in this time. And then there's this countess whose husband has been taken away by the party already because they spoke out. And it's just like, oh man. And the general, the person who is aiding Colonel Pulaski, who's like, I'm not strong enough. I'm not strong enough to speak out like the Countess's husband did. But I'm aiding you in secret and helping you along the way. And he makes that huge speech about how like stuff goes in slowly. It's like he starts it off by saying, we just committed a crime because he played classical music on the piano. And it's just like, it's a shame because, all these genius compositions have to be taken away. And it happens slowly and subtly that you don't understand it, but then it's all of a sudden it's at once. And when I was watching that portion of the film, I'm like, this film is still relevant to this day, Kat.
Yeah, well, it wasn't just that he was playing piano music. He was actually playing a piece by Felix Mendelssohn. He is a famous German composer. You might know him best for making the Wedding March, or Hark, Hear the Angels Sing, or the score to Midsummer's Night Dream. And even though he was raised Christian, he actually has Jewish background, and he is known as a Jewish composer. And you can imagine the Nincompoop Party didn't like that, hence why they outlawed his music. That's why it gives more poignance to the speech he makes afterwards, because they're there together in hiding, illegally, and they're playing this forbidden music and just wondering, why would they take away something so beautiful just because of its background? And they lament how, they are getting more and more people into that mindset, and people are just letting it because the party has gotten too big. But they also at the same time remember there are still people out there fighting to preserve this music, to preserve this art, and that they're truly the brave ones who, are fighting in this war. And granted, they can't do the head-on stuff like the soldiers do. They can't really liberate anyone from the camps that are being set up, but they're doing what they can to save their culture, to save their way of life, despite everything. And that's what makes that whole scene with the piano so powerful. And it is honestly kind of sad that it resonates so much with what's going on in our country right now.
Yeah, and why we can't use certain words in our podcast for fear of, stuff being taken down, considering current events. I'm going to say this right now. Normally, I like to say, hey, we don't like to get too political on here because our show is usually an escape. But I don't mind getting political because the thing is, when we're talking about Disney films, a lot of them are political, and there's politics to many of these films. But when it's this blatant, we have to talk about it. And this is a film about them trying to save art from being taken away in a regime. It's very relevant to this day, and the fact that we're living through an event that's kind of similar, it really makes you think that we take a lot of stuff for granted, and we have to keep standing up and raising our voices. And I know, eventually we'll probably get a comment like, oh, you should stick to talking about Disney films and podcasts, blah, blah, blah. I am. That's what this film is about. Disney was inherently political. And if you take a look at the war era, they were very much political. So it's like, I just want to state, how things feel even today when we are living through these events, Doug.
Yes, it's sad to be watching this movie and seeing, that exact thing is playing out in real time. Granted, we're fighting it, but it's sad. But as you said, Disney was very political, and therefore I think we can only achieve victory through air power. Come on, guys, we need air power to win
bastard.
this.
See, it always comes back to we have to use airplanes in order to stop to save World War II. That's how it ends.
The air power almost destroyed the stallion several times over.
Disney lied to me.
We also need a reluctant dragon. That's my opinion on the matter.
That simply isn't done, okay? That simply isn't done. But yeah, it's a sad thing that, we do have to see parallels to the world of today. But there is also a lot of hope in this film, and while it has a lot of segments where, it shows people trying to steal from the Spanish riding school, like bridles and saddles and stuff to sell because everyone's starving and they're all refugees. But it shows that, there's kindness even in places where you don't think of it. And that leads to the middle portion of the film, where they're refugees and they're trying to find a way to get, they can't get evacuation orders. They're trying to find a way to get out of the country. And all of a sudden, these Americans come in, and they're like, okay, well, we have General Patton here, and he read your book, and if you put on a performance for Patton, he might, go in and save the 300 mares for breeding, so you can actually save this. So it becomes okay, let's put on a performance for Patton, and then the final third is Patton going in and tracking down these horses in guise of another thing, because they're trying to take over other territory as well for the war. So it really kind of is a war film in that sense, but a lot of the middle is about them setting up this performance for General Patton, and there are portions that I'm going to get into about how, there are parts of this film that drag, but Doug, what do you think of, kind of the through line of this film?
I think at its core, it is nice to have it, but as you said, this kind of is where the film really starts to drag. It feels like once Patton gets in and they get his assistance in recovering the mares, then it just, they really lean into the war aspect of it and just, take their time. It almost feels like an entirely different movie.
And unfortunately, there's two main problems with this film. And I still recommend this film. I still think it's mostly a hidden gem, but the two main problems I have with it. One, this film does not know when to end. It really doesn't. And we're going to get into all the different places it could have ended. The other problem, though, is that they show 3 full performances of the White Stallions, the same performances throughout the film, just in different locations. And, like, there's a lot of tension in the fact that, oh, well, we haven't had time to perform, we don't have time to train the horses, blah, 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 blah. They put on a flawless performance. If there was any, like, sort of hesitation in the horses or anything that was wrong with the performances or anything, maybe, but, like, it's the same 3 performances and it takes up, like, 15 minutes each time, so it is a really big portion of the film. Kat, your thoughts on the 3 performances?
Well, I only remember 2 performances, but then again, they go on so long, they may as well be 3. But
Yeah.
I will admit the first time I saw it, I actually was impressed by it because I never actually watched the performances by the Spanish riding school before. Like, obviously I've seen, pictures and a few, like, clips here and there whenever you see, like, a documentary about, like, trained horses or whatever, but, like, to see it in action, I can see now, like, why they place so much value on the school, because seriously, like, the training on those horses are quite impressive. Like, maybe in today's day and age, people won't be as impressed, considering, we have, like, the Kentucky Derby and other, like, events that feature horses doing much more stuff, but in this case, I still do think that, like, it was quite impressive, especially because they were out of practice. They were working with like half the staff they normally have to ride the horses, but they still managed to pull off performance regardless. Doing their best with what they had for the general, and so I was impressed with it the first time I saw it. As for the ending, yeah, like that. But by that point, I was eager for the movie to end, but they put on, like, another, like, full-on performance. And granted, they use it as a way to show you what happened to the other characters we meet throughout the films. Like, you see, the train station guy, you see the railroad conductor and whatever, and so yeah, they made it through the war safe and whatever. But just to see the whole thing again is just like, okay, we get it. Can we just, like, cut it short or something? Like, do we need to see a full-on performance? We already saw one. Like,
We saw this already.
Like, I can understand if maybe when they performed for the general, like, they did an abridged performance. Like, say they, were halfway through it and then he suddenly got up and said, okay, that's enough, and then left, making you think, oh, did he hate it? But it turns out, otherwise. And then you get the final performance. But yeah, in this case, they could have just cut it at them, like, going back to the school and saluting everybody. So, yeah. But I get it. They want to showcase the horses. They want to promote the Spanish school. So, they set out what they set out to do. It's just, again, it just kills the pacing of this film.
Yeah, and that's a big problem. The pacing, it has several points where it drags. You have a semi-performance in the very beginning, because the opening bits of the film are just like horses dancing and a little bit of that. You have the full performance in the middle and the full performance at the end. And that would have been fine if we didn't have 17 endings, because, you have them going in, you have a negotiation with the enemy army, and they said, okay, everything's going to be fine. You could have ended it there. Well, they have tension at the border. Okay. Is there going to be any problems when they get there? No, someone just leaked to the info. So they could have ended it once they actually got to them. Nope. They could have ended it when they found the horses. They could have ended it on the plane when the horses are coming towards them. But then they have another, like, 3 or 4 possible endings where, like, the horses come back into the refugee camp, and then they have the full-on performance, and I'm telling you, this has more endings than The Lord of the Rings, Return of the King. It has places where it could narratively have ended, and we were just screaming at the film, like, end! How is there, like, 20 more minutes of this? So that is a big problem with the film. I don't think this is a bad film. I honestly think that this film is something that people should see. It reminds me in places of the film Life is Beautiful, where it delves into things that you don't normally see in a war movie. The problem is, I feel like it was funded by the military. I don't really have any information here that can support that, unfortunately, because there's not a lot of information that I have, but I wouldn't be surprised if this was funded by the military. It was set in Austria. They did a lot of filming in Vienna. They had, the dad from Almost Angels makes a comeback, but a lot of it is focused on the military and Patton and the tanks and stuff like that. And I feel like this was funded by the military. Anything to add to that, Doug?
I mean, I don't know. Like I said, being that this is, Disney we're talking about, and he loves he loves him some war, it wouldn't surprise me if, he got some funding from the army or whatever to take part in this. But, yeah. Avengers Endgame was 3 hours, and it doesn't feel as long as this. I'll say at least, yeah, you could probably cut it right when he announces that, for the 250th anniversary of the Spanish writing school, that they return to the place where they started out in the film. And do a performance. It's you could, cut it at that point. You could definitely cut a lot of the war parts of it. And yeah, you could definitely do an abridged performance when Patton watches the horses. Yeah, there's a lot. You could easily cut this down to an hour and a half, and make it flow a lot better. But at the same time, it does a good job of, being this, documentary and, recreation. So I can't be too angry at it. One thing I do take issue with, though, and I mean, this is a minor nitpick because we mentioned that, the people that helped along the way. I do also feel like the Colonel was so fixated on getting all the horses out that he didn't really take much stock in all the other Austrians that were trying to flee. It's trying to prioritize his horses, and it's that's taking a lot of resources away from other people, to the point where, the guy in the train station, he's basically telling him to leave, and he has to say, "Hey, are those your kids? I'm glad they're alive and well. Did they ever see the horses?" It feels so manipulative. And then there's the the plane shelling down over the train, and everybody's trying to take cover. So what does he do? He convinces the engineer to take them away, because everybody's just stopped. It's
yeah.
I want to, feel sympathy here. I get what you're trying to do, but at the same time, it's come on, what about all the other people here?
Yeah, and I do think part of the problem is, so this is based on The Dancing White Horses of Vienna, written by Colonel Pulaski. So it's a self-told story. And he also wrote, along with A.J. Carruthers, the screenplay. So I feel like a lot of it was this was his epic, and he wanted to make it seem bigger and more important for certain things, and he probably only had the funding from the military. It does not fully paint him in a great light, but he's trying to save culture, and I get that. I feel like saving art and culture is important. It's just that there's certain things that you stop and think really is this really more important than your life? But okay, Kat.
Well, To answer your question about funding from the military, I don't think that part is true, but one thing I did find that might explain why they do focus on, like, the war aspect a little bit more. The director, Arthur Hiller, actually fought in World War II. He actually was part of the Canadian Royal Air Force, and he actually flew one of those heavy bombers over German territory. Oh, yeah, and he was Jewish. So I imagine he has some rather strong feelings about the war.
Ah,
So,
okay.
so
That's why this film is so poignant.
yeah, exactly. So that explains that. As for the criticism about, General Patowski's misplaced priorities, I get it. Like, I did see a lot of criticism both from other reviewers and people who comment on the movie and stuff, saying how, like, how is this a miracle? They just saved some horses. What about all the people that were, like, sent off to camps and whatever, and all the POWs and so on and so forth. And I get it. When you compare animal lives to human lives, obviously the human lives are more important. But again, that's not what this movie is about. Like, and it's not like there weren't efforts made both from the military and from, citizens of the invaded countries, like, to free these people. There are so many untold stories of, smuggling Jewish people out of the various territories, trying to save these families, trying to save children. There's so many of them, and slowly they're getting told more and more so that the people that rescue them are getting recognition. But how often do you hear the story of one man managing to save 70 horses, transporting them out of Nincompoop territory to safety, and, like, in the midst of the war? Like, it's really impressive, and especially because the school had such an influence in, its patriotism as being such, like, a prime treasure of Austria, that those who initially didn't want to help them, once they learned who the horses were moved to help them. They put the value of their national treasure above their safety because they knew it was worth preserving. And that, to me, I feel is important because, again, art, culture, history, that should be preserved. That's what makes life worth living. And you can't let an enemy destroy all that. Otherwise, what is there to live for when the war is over?
Yeah, I definitely agree. And here's the thing, they talk about that during the speech about that, but throughout the film, the Nincompoop Party is trying to put their art in harm's way. The paintings, the artwork, the music, the culture, the horses, the way of life of these people is being threatened at every single moment. And the main through line, the main theme is that, yes, human life is incredibly important, but if you take away someone's entire culture, their entire way of life, what is left? You're just a slave to this party that is already losing a war. And you see it with, like, these idiots walking in and doing the stupid salute, and he rebels by not doing the salute back. There's little things that they do, but smuggling this stuff out through these, checkpoints where oftentimes you would find things destroyed or raided. It's impressive. It takes courage to put the culture above your own life. And I think that's important here. I think that's a big part of this film and a big part of, like, World War II and how, like, everything seemed like it was being taken away, but you gotta fight for it. Some things are just worth fighting for. All right. Is there anything else to add before I move on to, like, some of the characters and anything else?
No, you can move on to the characters. I definitely want to talk about the characters.
Okay, before we do talk about the characters, I do want to briefly mention the director again, Arthur Hiller. I actually have a history with this director. So I was looking up, I'm like, wait a second, why does that name sound familiar? Back, in another lifetime, in another universe, there was a version of Zenith who reviewed this movie called Carpool with Magic Steve. Arthur Hiller directed Carpool, this wacky comedy, and I'm like, wait a second. Carpool, that comedy that was not really great, but like it was all over the place, directed this poignant film about World War II. Like, that's actually pretty impressive. That's kind of crazy. Doug, do you remember that review?
I didn't know about it until you brought it. I think I remember hearing about Magic Steve, but that's it.
Okay. But yeah, like, it's kind of crazy that this guy has such range. Unfortunately, it seems like in later years he did do a lot more comedy films than like dramas, which is a shame because he has a talent here. I think he does a great job with this film. It's just there is a little bit of drag in the middle. Okay, moving on to the characters. There's not too many in this film. First off, we have Robert Taylor as Colonel Podasky. Doug, what do you think?
I thought he was great. He had this voice that I know I've heard. I think I've heard it in like the 90s, early 2000s in some cartoons. And then I look up his bio and it's like, oh wait, he actually died a few years after this movie came out. So that was kind of depressing. But, I thought he did a fantastic job. Just that voice, just him showing all this passion and, getting it being, very militarized, but definitely having a soft side and everything and being very committed. Just, he is very enjoyable to watch.
Kat, what do you think?
I was definitely impressed by him. Like he was a good lead. He keeps your attention, and he also has a nice range about him in that you can tell when, he's being stern because he feels he has to, but also he's trying to like rein in his emotions because he cares so much about these horses. Like riding the horses is his life. It's his legacy, and he's trying so hard to preserve that. And you see all the frustration he goes through, like trying to save the horses, trying to save the school, and trying to protect everybody that's important to him. And you can see that it gets, like, the frustration build over time because, obviously people don't value the horses as much as he does. And it takes his wife reminding him of that, hey, to other people, a horse is just a horse. But, you gotta, if you want these people on your side, you gotta rein yourself in a bit. Because there are times where he is a jerk. Like, he is definitely a jerk. Like, he yells at a student because, one of the guys from the Nincompoop Party pissed him off, and then he also you can tell he wants to lash out at all the refugees for trying to steal his horses and stuff, which is understandable. But at the same time, it's like, dude, they're in a worse position than you are now. Like, you have no right to judge. And then of course he gets angry at Patton, who watches his show with resting bitch face the whole time, and then doesn't even acknowledge him afterwards, for his request. So like you can feel his frustration, but at the same time also like, dude, chill, all right? Just chill, please. So I thought he did a good job, like, yeah, just like, portraying that. Like, you definitely feel how he's feeling, and then you feel, exultation toward the end when, you see his happiness at having gotten his school back and having saved the thing that makes his life worth living.
Yeah, and you feel the passion, you feel like every single scene that he delivers. And a lot of it is just Robert Taylor. The actor, according to Wikipedia, was an American film, television actor, and singer who was one of the most popular leading men of his era. Granted, I wasn't around in the 1930s, but he started in the 1930s signing with MGM, and he's been in a lot of films: Camille, A Yank at Oxford, Waterloo Bridge, Baton. He's done a lot. Unfortunately, Taylor died of lung cancer at the age of 57. because he was a chain smoker, which was actually a big thing back then. So it's unfortunate that we lost someone of his caliber. He died in 1969, but yeah, like I think a lot of it has to do with simply just how great an actor he was.
I do have to nitpick one thing, though, in that everybody around him is basically speaking with an accent, so why isn't he?
Yeah, he's not. He's not. He doesn't have any sort of accent whatsoever.
It's like, it's a good thing he was giving such a good performance that I can kind of overlook it, but still.
Yeah, I will agree with you there, because you look at any one of these and they're giving heavy Austrian accents, and just not him. Nope. I also want to bring up General Telheim, played by Kurt Jurgens. My second favorite character in the film. He was the one who basically allowed for the entire regiment to go through with the evacuation order, even though there was no evacuation order. Doug, what do you think of General Telheim?
I thought he was great. Just, he wants to be friendly, but he's also got the weight of the world. He made the wrong decision in who he supported. So you could see he really wants to make up for that. I mean, at the end of the day, Austria and the Lipizaners mean the world to him. So he will make any little betrayal, that he can to keep them safe. And then you see, he goes over to he goes to exile with them, and you just see just his remorse for the whole situation. But he's determined to help them in any way that he can.
And I think what I really like about this character is that it shows the grayness of the morality there, because he clearly made a mistake. He backed the wrong party, but he doesn't stop. He's like, I'm going to go and face retribution, because I don't want to be branded a nincompoop, but he's going to face it. He's not strong enough to fight back, and he wishes that he didn't back the wrong party. It's all about he faces responsibility, and he does what he can do to save his friend, and he says this may be the last goodbye I give you, but I'm giving you your horses back, I'm giving you your life back, I just wish I could give you more. And it's such a poignant scene where he's just the war is basically over, we're going to be tried, I don't know what else I can do. And it's a lot more gray than black and white, like how we had the war painted before. Kat?
Yeah, honestly, I thought Kurt Jurgens was the best character in this movie. General Telheim is one of those really complex characters that is on the good person's side, but at the same time he's technically part of the bad person's side. And granted, it's not his fault. This party invaded his country. He was a member of the army. He had to serve, but he falls into the category of, I was just following orders. And it was too late by the time he could do otherwise. So he basically had to use what he could at his disposal to get those he cared about out of harm's way without fully, going against his orders. And yeah, the speeches he makes, the words he says in regards to his situation, about how he just kind of resigns himself to punishment, it is so crushing, because deep down he is a good person, but he recognizes his circumstances and that he unfortunately chose the wrong side and didn't fight back when he should have. It should be noted that I think the reason why his performance is so powerful is because the actor himself, Kurt Jurgens, he actually was imprisoned by the Nincompoop Party. Yeah, he unfortunately said the wrong thing in front of the wrong people who happen to have extremely strong ties to the Nincompoop Party, and he ended up being thrown into a labor camp for only a few weeks. He thankfully managed to escape and hide out until the war was over. But point is, he dealt with these monsters head on. He knows what they were capable of firsthand. So that explains why he felt the way he did making that speech. And it's sad because like the character General Tellenheim most likely didn't survive the end of the war. It's like, yes, the Russians liberated Vienna, but here's the thing. Russians did not like the Germans. There's a reason why their truce did not last that long and why they turned against each other. And unfortunately, that carried on even when they were liberating places. If you so much as had a German name, if you so much as were even captured by the Germans, you were considered a traitor, and the Russians dealt with you promptly. So yeah, that I'm pretty certain he did not make it out alive, and that was indeed the last time they spoke to each other. So yeah, that kind of adds another tragic aspect of that character. But again, it just I just love how smart he is about, getting them out of Vienna. I love how he makes sure to demilitarizes the school before the Russians get there so they don't take out their fury on the school itself. So he ended up being a hero in the end. It just sucks that he had to suffer for it.
I also want to point out, because this is probably the most recognizable actor in the entire thing, Kurt Jurgens has been in over 100 films. Not just that, but he also was an international star. He starred in a theater. He did so much, but you may know him as the James Bond villain Karl Stromberg in The Spy Who Loved Me. So, he is in the James Bond films as well. And that goes to show, he was so good at acting that he broke across the seas and he lived a long life in so many films. So I just want to give kudos to him.
Yeah, salute. The good salute.
Salute.
But yeah, so he really is one of the ones that makes the film, and I think just having him portray in one of this more powerful roles, it hits, that scene where he's playing the piano and they're sitting around with the contest, and he makes some of the best speeches, and I think he makes this film. All right, there's not too much left to discuss in terms of the actors. There's really only one or two more important actors, so I kind of want to focus a little bit more. We have Lily Palmer, who plays Vedena Podatsky, who is the Colonel's wife. She is kind of a force of contention for her husband. She steers him in the right direction. She understands his hesitation, but she's also like, think of your station, think of yourself. We don't want to be in trouble as well. And she's kind of a voice of reason in that respect. Doug, what do you think of his wife?
100% agree with you there, that she's basically the person keeping the Colonel grounded through all of this. It's like, yeah, you don't need a yes man. You need a wife to remind you of reality, remind you to keep your cool, remind you that the days, it will eventually be over, and that you will see the light again, you will see the school again. So yeah, I mean, it's not a whole lot that you can say about her, but she's definitely like the yin to his yang.
Kat, what do you think?
I think she's my second favorite character in the film, because again, she has to deal with reining in her husband's tantrums for the sake of fostering peace with the people he needs help from. Because like I said, as good as a character as Louis Patowski is, he is prone to anger, and lashing out when he feels he's been wronged, which again could have cost him some vital connections had he been allowed to say and do it as he pleased. So I'm glad she was there to rein him in. Like, at first I thought I wouldn't like her because in the beginning she's trying to like talk him out of, fleeing Vienna. She's kind of trying to bury her head in the sand in regards to what's going on with the war. But when she realizes that he is serious about leaving and saving the stallions, she's 100% on board. Like, she could have just stayed behind and, like, hid, but she goes with him. She stays with him even as bombs are dropping. And in the town, she's constantly reminding him, not to lash out at those that are in a similar or worse position than he is. Like, you can tell that he wants to curse off of General Patton for not, being ecstatic about his show, but she reminds him, like, look, you gotta rein it in a bit. Like, give him some time, and hopefully he'll come around. So I did appreciate, like, her speech and stuff, and again reminding him that, like, look, these are horses. Like, the people, their transportation, their food, they're like a commodity or whatever. Like, they're not like these treasures that in the same regard that you hold them as. So I am glad she was the voice of reason for all this, and I do like how subtle she is in terms of, like, converting people to their side, showing the U.S. Army, oh, look at these horses, they're so talented, and, like, I'm sure they're nothing like you have back home, and we just want to show our gratitude to you by putting on a show for you, and hopefully we'll get your support. So, again, I like the subtlety of that, and I think she did a fantastic job. And one thing I did learn in tidbits, she also is of Jewish heritage, and she actually did have relatives that were thrown in the camps. So again, another actor that comes from a background relevant to the story going on in this movie.
Mm-hmm. I definitely think she does great. I love how she, is the voice of reason, but when he's not trustful of the American army, so she's just like, use more kindness, smile more. And it's nice for once hearing a woman allowed to say that to a man in a film. Like, just, because men are always surly and like, rrr. But, like, she's like, smile more, be kind. You can win them over with kindness. They're here to help. And I really like her in her scenes. Lily Palmer.
Talk less. Smile more. Don't let them know what you're against or what you're for. Sorry, I had to throw that in there.
I think Lily Palmer did a great job. She's another one who has so many film roles. I don't recognize any of these, but she's been acting since the 1930s, and she acted all the way up until 2018. Now, granted, she died around like the 80s, but she starred in The Other Side of the Wind posthumously. I'm not sure, like, I think that was something that was like recorded way earlier, but she died in 1986, and she was acting right up until then. So I think, like, I gotta give her props. Like, she was acting for a very long time. She did a great job. I wish I want to see other films she's in, because I really like this role.
I did note that she actually plays Anne Frank's mother in The Diary of Anne Frank, the TV movie. So, again, poignancy.
Yep. I think the only other person we should talk about, like, I liked Ryder Otto, played by Eddie Albert, but, like, he's a minor role. The only other major role was General George Patton, played by John Larch. And, I haven't actually seen the movie Patton, but from the images that I saw of Patton, they got a pretty good actor to play the part. Look pretty similar.
I mean, it's hard to picture anyone but George C. Scott in the role. Let's admit that.
Yeah. Like, you magnificent bastard, right, you buck? Lewis has spoiled me because I haven't seen Patton, but I know all the little clips, and I want to see it. But, Doug, what do you think of John Larch as Patton?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the same boat as you, where that clip of Patton yelling, "You magnificent bastard, I read your book," is really all I have to go on. But given that much and what a reputation that Patton has, I definitely think that John Larch does exactly the performance that I expect of General George S. Patton.
Mm-hmm. Kat?
I actually think he did a pretty good job because when you first hear that Patton's going to be in the film, you're thinking, oh, he's this larger than life general. He's like the legendary World War II figurehead. It's like, what the hell is he like? What the hell is his business? Trying to rescue these horses? Are they even like are they even of his station? Like, is he going to actually help with this or not? Is he going to be impressed? And granted, he does have background. He was in the 1912 Olympics as a horse rider, so he has that affinity for them. So you're thinking, okay, so there's a chance here. And again, I do love how they're putting on the show for Patton. They're doing the very best of what they have at their disposal, and you see everybody around them is like so impressed because most of them have never seen a horse show like this before. And then Pat's just sitting there looking so pissed off. Like I said, he's like the master of resting bitch face, and everyone's like, what the hell's wrong with him? Is he constipated or something? So and then when it's over, like, he hears out Potowski say, like, begging him, can you please, like, help us rescue the mares? Can you please take an interest in this? And he's just like, is my lunch ready? And it was like, oh, man. But I think that's part of his tactics, because one of the things they teach you in the army is that, if you're dealing with unknown forces or people you never met before, don't let on your intentions right away. Like, a military tactic, especially if you're dealing with someone who worked for an enemy, never let them, like, see your face, or at least, your true face. So you can kind of tell that, like, he's keeping himself stoic. Like, he obviously, like, it's clear he does like the performance ultimately, because afterwards he has to see the stables. So clearly he wants to see that the horses are being taken care of. He wants to see what state they're in. And then, of course, he wants to eat some food, because how can you make a rational decision on an empty stomach? And then he consults the rest of his army. He consults his strategist. He sees what their next mission is, and he's like, okay, so we're going to be in that area anyway to liberate these people being captured by the Nincompoop Party. Oh, they just so happen to be in the same area as the horses. I guess we can kill two birds with one stone. So let's rescue the horses too. And then even when he's
no
there,
animals were harmed in the making of this review.
And then even when he's there and then he sees the horses, like, he could have, just saved the Lipizans, but there were so many mixed in with all these other horses. He's just like, you know what? Let's just take them all, Let's save all the horses. So I do think he played the role pretty good in terms of, how he portrays a military man of that caliber. Like, it wasn't a stellar performance. Like, again, he's no George C. Scott, but I think he played his role pretty good. And again, you end up liking him by the end, because you know that he's deep down, he's actually a really good guy who does care about horses, who does want to help where he can, outside of just, sending his soldiers in to fight.
Yeah, it's not the best performance, but you can tell that he has military experience, because Larch actually served 4 years in the U.S. Army during World War II, and it affected him personally. So you're seeing a lot of that affectation on him throughout the film. And I honestly think the biggest credit to this film is that they get people who were involved in this war, who were victims of it as actors, who were in the army, as actors. It really shows they were trying to be authentic, and they were trying to portray it as it really was. And I think that really came across.
Not to mention people of, Jewish background who might have a personal stake in this.
Yeah, yep. Alrighty. So that's all the big main characters. There's not that many, major players, but I think the ones that are here do such a great job, and it shows a lot. This is a film that we could probably go further in depth in, but I'm actually happy leaving it here. I want you guys to go out and watch it, because this film, while it does have its dull points, I think it's a hidden gem. This is a film that doesn't sugarcoat it. It doesn't pull its punches. It's not gore focused like a lot of the World War II films about America where they showcase the realities of the war, or it's not gung-ho heroic like some of those as well. This is a film that really shows the difficulties of the war. Again, I liken it to kind of Life is Beautiful in that it's the human aspect behind the war. And that's what I like. Doug, what are your final thoughts?
Yeah, definitely. It's nice to see this, very human take on World War II, and how the people weren't actively involved so much with the fighting. How it affects their day to day. How they try to flee from it. How eventually they kind of become involved in it again. So yeah, this is a nice one. However, we may complain about it being long. It is definitely worth the watch, and I really would like Disney Plus to add it to streaming, or it definitely needs a physical release. It's kind of sad that this film is kind of just not talked about, especially given how how very relevant it is to what's going on in the world today. We could definitely use it. I would definitely recommend watching it if you can find it.
And Kat, final thoughts?
Yeah, like I said, I was honestly surprised and very impressed by this film. Like, it's a shame that because of its imagery and subject matter, that most likely no streaming service is going to pick it up, especially Disney Plus, because again, they try to distance themselves from that. But I feel like this should be watched by everyone, and I'm really glad that it is available in its entirety on YouTube for everyone to watch, because it should be. Again, this is telling a piece of actual history. Like, this isn't embellished or anything. This is actually told by the very person it stars. Like, Louis Podolsky, actually lived through this. He did all this. He wrote the book so that that his story would not be forgotten by history. In fact, he actually shows up in the film in a very brief cameo, like at the end during the horse show. So, he was there. This is all true. And granted, like, there are maybe a few details here and there he might have embellished or that was changed for film purposes, but point is, this is a real story that happened. This is the real bravery of people who lived during that time. It shows like what they went through in the face of this horrible monster of history. And I just think it's so inspiring. And like, could they remake it today? Maybe, maybe not. Not in the current landscape we're in. But I do think, like, they could, and just make a few, again, edits in terms of, like, the pacing and general length of the film. But otherwise, again, I feel like this should be seen a lot more. This should be shown in classes. This should be a part of like some curriculum somewhere, either in regards to like horse history or art history or Vienna history, just history in general. And these actors should be honored, obviously. Granted, a lot of them have a lot to their repertoire, but they should be well known for their portrayals in this film. I do think it's very important. And again, I'm just like, I'm just nothing short of impressed that they were able to like make it this compelling. Because again, we've seen what Disney does when they focus on animals far too heavily and they try to humanize them. And I think the best course of action they did to make this film appealing was to portray the humans who value the animals. So yeah, if you have a chance, please watch this film. You will not regret it.
Yeah, it's free on YouTube. This is one of those where I wish it was on other streaming sites, but go watch it. It does have its sore points. It does have its dips. But it is important, and I feel like they should be teaching this in classes. This is one of those where I was impressed. I was surprised. It's mostly a hidden gem. And considering we've had 3 in the 60s that nobody talks about. This is actually pretty impressive, and I hope it keeps stepping it up. Granted, we're about to start getting into the films that everybody knows about, because, Mary Poppins is coming up. We have our Homeward Bound marathon coming up because, Homeward Bound started in the 60s.
Journey.
The Incredible Journey, So we have these films that are coming up, but it's always interesting to see, like, is this going to be another Moon pilot where it was left in the dust for a reason? Or is this going to be an Almost Angels? Or is it going to be a film like this where Almost Angels has merit in and of itself, and I see why it was there, but, you can't really recommend it to everyone. With this, I think everyone should watch this, even though it's a horse film, even though, like, you may not like horses, this is important. So yeah, that's what I think. I'm really happy with this film, and I hope that, eventually once we get to, like, more well-known films, we'll see more of these hidden gems pop up. But God, we've seen a lot lately, and it's like it's turning around. The luck is turning around. I'm happy about that.
And also, go watch the Angry Beavers episode Fancy Prance.
Yeah, Fancy Prince is so worth it. It's 11 minutes, but they managed to do a cartoon worthy of that 11 minutes. It is so good. It's a Rocky parody and a parody of this, and yet they somehow managed to get everything done right. Is great. Coming up next time, we have the final unknown film of this block before Incredible Journey. So we're going to be talking about Summer Magic. I don't know anything about it. I usually look up information like after I've seen the film, or like right before I go to see the film. So I don't know what it's about. I hope that it's about magicians. Maybe it's Max Magicians in the Legend of the Rings or something like that. I don't know.
Well, I know a song that comes from it by Burl Ives. All I wanna do when the day is through is linger here on the front porch with you. And that's all I'm gonna sing, probably, because we'll get copyright strike.
Also, it's another Haley Mills film.
Oh, right. This is the Haley Mills film that Haley Mills does not like. Like, I did look up a little bit of it, and Haley Mills actually doesn't like the film. So I'm curious to see how this goes, and afterwards we're going to get into the Homeward Bound marathon with The Incredible Journey, Homeward Bound, The Incredible Journey, and Homeward Bound 2, Lost in San Francisco, Electric Boogaloo. So we're getting into more important, more well-known films, but I'm curious to see how this one goes. In any case, I'm Zenith Warrior Princess, the cutest of ghost buns.
I'm Kat Macberrie.
I'm Doug Macberrie.
And just remember, every piece of art has politics. So go out and speak your piece, because it's important to save the art.